Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Wavelength. The real issue with data privacy is who's collecting your data behind the scenes, so in the back end of it, and who is that being shared with.
Sparking the combos about Adelaide.
It's every woman's choice. If they choose to have an abortion, then so be it.
You should be having...
These issues need to be properly investigated, and we need to make sure that LGBTIQ people are supported to be who they are.
On Fresh 92.7.
Welcome to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. I'm your host, David, and tonight I am joined by long-term Wavo legend and newsreader supreme, Andrew. How are you doing, man?
Hey, David. Yeah, I'm good, man.
Good to be on the show.
Absolutely. I love it. It's nice. First time, but
I know.
You know,
it's been too long trying to get you on this.
I know. It's a long time coming, but we're finally here, finally ready to go.
We are. Nice. And it's been a couple of weeks since we've been gone, everyone, so we just had a little bit of a end of year hiatus. Yeah. But we're back and we've got some amazing stories.
Tonight on Wavelength, we've got a very special guest in to explain just how South Australia managed to escape the worst of COVID-19. That's right, I had an amazing chat with Dr. Nicola Spurrier last week, and you won't want to miss that.
We'll also be letting you know everything you need to know about the coronavirus this week. But next, Hamish will be chatting with an actor from Windmill's latest production of kids' favourite Grug. You're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Andrew, how familiar are you with the adorable Australian kids story Grug about that little brown dude who is just a perfect shape in every way possible, in my opinion?
I was a mid-90s kid, so he definitely played a bit of a part in my childhood. But it rings a bell here and there. But
It's such a cute little dude, such a cute little story. So this week, Hamish had a chat with Matt Crook, and he's one of the actors in Windmill's latest production of Grug, about the show.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
If you were a child of the 80s or 90s in Australia, chances are you're pretty familiar with our favourite little weirdo, Grug. After starting his life at the top of a burrawong tree, the curious creature has now had his timeless tales adapted for the stage, and the award-winning show from Windmill Theatre Productions has taken him all over the world. And now the show finally returns to Adelaide, giving us all a reason to head back to the theatre and enjoy our first taste of live entertainment since COVID put everything on ice. One of the show's lead performers, Matt Crook, joined me for a chat about all things Grug.
Could you just tell us a little bit about the history of Grug? So it started as an Australian production 10 years ago, I believe, but it's been performed all over the world now. What's that been like? What's that journey been like?
It's been amazing. I first jumped on board 2012, 2013. So yeah, as you said, it's the 10th anniversary. First performed in 2010, and I first started on a 2013 tour in the States, actually.
Oh, wow.
And we spent 6 months over there. We had a 1 month stint in Broadway in New York and at the New Victory, and that was incredible. And then we just saw this wonderful cross-section of the country, taking the show to all these different places, mostly along the eastern seaboard, and it was amazing. And I've worked with Windmill on and off since 2010 on other productions as well, besides Grug, including the sequel, Grug and the Rainbow. And we've taken that around the world too, you know, not just to America but to China and throughout the country here. It's been a wonderful journey. It's been really lovely.
I hear you're actually going to be coming up on 250 performances during this season. Is that right? 250 shows, man.
That's right. I didn't realise it. The show, though, is the perfect length for younger audiences. It really holds their attention for just the right amount of time. So it's not something that it definitely doesn't drag. And so, you know, we've got the stamina to do the three shows. But it is quite a large number, and you get to the point where you know the show inside and out, and that's what's really important, to check in with each other and all the other actors or the director, if the director's coming in, or the stage manager, whoever it may be, just to make sure that we're staying on the ball and we're giving the best show that we can when we're keeping it alive and fresh. And certainly the mode that the show operates in is that really beautiful, delicate, narrated, almost like a wildlife doco, gentle mode, and you have to work to make sure that you're present in that, and keeping the audiences engaged.
What has been some of your biggest highlights, kind of looking back? What is it about being a performer that you love the most?
Performing in New York on 42nd Street, that was incredible. Going to work every day and going to the theatre and living in Brooklyn, and that was amazing. The great thing about being a performer and a theatre maker and an artist is that there are highlights on every job. Every job is completely different. So that's why when I say it's one of the best jobs in the world. It really is. You learn new skills on every job. You see new places in the world, places that you wouldn't necessarily get to go to at this point in your life, or could afford to go to. The people you meet are always so interesting. And a lot of artists and creatives come from completely different working backgrounds too. So through my time with Grug, I've been able to hone my puppetry skills too, because you're working with puppet makers and people who are who have trained in puppetry or worked for theatre companies that specialise in puppetry. So the chances for personal development have been a real highlight too.
That's so awesome. You'd be a jack of all trades at this point, I guess.
Well, I was auditioning for a film the other day, and I had to learn a guitar solo that I'd never learnt before. And so over the week, you're sort of doing this crash course in this particular style of guitar playing, and I've done a bit of it before, but not like this. So you really have to just adapt and go, right, I'm going to fill my brain with as much information as I can in a short amount of time. But you'll be surprised what stays with you as well. You
mentioned before about Grug and the puppetry that's involved. What goes into making that work?
Grug he's this gorgeous handmade puppet made by Pilar Ruse, who's also performed in the show as well. And throughout the show, we all have a chance to operate Grug and work with Grug, but then we're also each talking to the audience as well and observing Grug's interactions as if he's alive, and watching him explore the world and go on these adventures. We are performing sort of on this big playboard, I guess you'd describe it. That's what we call it. It's like a giant set that we move Grug on. Yep. That was designed by a wonderful designer, Jonathan Oxlade. And behind there is all these little surprises and tricks and things, and behind there we never stop. We're always sort of running around. Yep. Trying to get to the next location or operating the next puppet or get ready to spring the next surprise, and it's sort of like this mad choreographed dance. Operating Grug is you have to be really specific. It's a lot of specific work, and that's another thing we always check in on with each other is making sure that what we're doing is translating to the audience too.
Could you tell us a bit more about production and what it's about? So as I said before, at this point, Grug is basically a national treasure in Australia. Yeah. But for those who aren't familiar with the character, could you tell us a bit about him?
This production is a theatrical adaptation of those Grug books, and it really captures the sort of the essence and that sort of same beautiful wildlife 70s and 80s aesthetic of those original books too. For those that don't know, it follows Grug, and he began life at the top of a burrawong tree that fell to the ground, and Grug sort of resembles this small stripy haystack, and Grug's this innately curious creature. He's sort of discovering everything for the very first time, and is very charming and funny, and he goes on these adventures that are quite weird and wonderful. And I think that is what people connect to, whether it's kids or you and I, adults, or us as theatre makers, is that sort of that curiosity, that mode of looking through the eyes of a child, and think that's what kids love too. A lot of the show is inspired by the books. So I'm a child of the 80s, so I grew up with them. And the first act, for example, is it draws very heavily on that very first 1979 Grug book, which we call the origin story. And and some moments, we sit in, we investigate a little bit longer than in the books. And then other bits we sort of, we've adapted to fit the show. But I think it should, the aim is we want to inspire that same curiosity and wonder, that same warm feeling that you got when reading the books. But it's got a sweet soundtrack underneath it by DJ Trip too. He's this sort of silent creature. Everything is, you read what's going on in Grug's mind on Grug's face, and I think you just sort of the kids and adults alike see that curiosity, and I think he's just innately relatable. There's and as well, the other thing is that Grug's such a unique looking creature too, that it's hard to sort of put Grug in a box.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's what makes him so timeless too. Yeah. And he looks a little bit weird, but he's cute too, and I think that's people can't help but love that. Yeah. When every time Grug's revealed in the audience, there's this quiet, excited murmur that sort of there's like a wave that kind of goes across the audience of all the kids gasping, and I think that sort of sums up their sort of oh my God, that's Grug, and he's right here in the room with me right now.
With it going all around the globe, what has the reception been like in other parts of the world, places that probably aren't as familiar with the character? Have the audiences kind of responded the same, and what have been some of the best reactions?
Yeah, good question. Overall, it's been really, really wonderful. Most of my time has been spent in the US and China, and obviously, as you said, Grug is cultural phenomenon here. We all know what he is. We've got that sort of quintessential Australian wildlife vibe. But I wasn't. We weren't sure how it's gonna translate over there. Yeah. But it did. It really did. People really took to the story and the show and to the puppets, and I think in America they described him as being the Elmo of Down Under. Yeah, they loved him, and we sold out lots of shows. I think it's because he is so unique. Grug's adventures can translate and can mean just as much for kids anywhere in the world, even in China, where there is a language barrier, and we did have a translator translate some moments, but there are other moments where you don't need translation at all, like the physicality and the Grug in the moment sort of says it all.
I was just wondering, what's the vibe like around the place at the moment among the cast and the crew about finally being able to return back to the stage? I imagine, is everyone just chomping at the bit to get back out there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone's really excited to be back. Cautious, of course. But for many of us, it's been, the better part of a year since we've been on stage, and we've found other ways to stay engaged creatively, whether it's with Windmill or whatever. But it's not really comparable to being physically in a room working with, other creatives, other actors. And also that's the other wonderful thing about Windmill and South Australian art scene in general is a lot of people you work with are your friends, family. So the community is really tight-knit. So we're also looking forward to working together, I think, in that respect too, just sort of being, feeding off each other's energies and catching up and seeing what we can make. And, so we're all, I think, we can't wait. The show has adapted a little bit. We've moved to the Dunstan Playhouse now, so we're going to just to accommodate the more of like a checkerboard seating, a seating thing. So everyone will be video safe coming along. But I think the industry has also had to find new ways to engage audiences, whether it be if it's an independent show that's performing for an audience on Zoom, for example. I've been a part of a couple of developments where the showing has been performed on Zoom, or tickets have been bought to see a Zoom play. Where all the actors are in different boxes. For any people listening who've used Zoom before, the actors are literally in their rooms performing all together, and just sort of trying to negotiate the internet lag. And then other theatre companies have gone straight to, right, we're going to do this, but we're going to live stream it and beam into everyone's homes. And that's so do the production exactly how it was or is, but we're now working with a 4-camera setup, live streaming, and they've got a digital live video operator there. That's another role they've had to factor in, and also alter the performance maybe not alter the performance, but alter add that as a consideration, and that's been a really nice thing as well. Being stuck at home is being able to go, hey, we can still see theatre, we can still see some things. It's not the same. It definitely doesn't live up to that same magic of being in a room with people in that moment. That's something you can't replicate. But it's still nice to kind of go, this is something.
What do you hope people walk away from the show feeling?
Yeah, good question. I think that sort of sense of connection. I mean, the theatre is such a place of community. Is this in the same way that going to the cinema is. That's another thing that I missed for quite a while. There's something about being in the same room as other people and experiencing the same thing, and interpreting it in different ways, but experiencing the same thing at the same time. I read the study that people in the theatre, audience members in the theatre, their heartbeats begin to synchronize. So I think we just can't wait to be a part of that too. I think people miss the theatre, and there's only so much there's only so much Netflix or only so many podcasts you can listen to. There's that sort of like a excitement and a danger's too strong of a word, but this idea that anything can happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like the possibilities are endless. And it's not even necessarily something going wrong, but it's just a happy accident, of this little moment between a character and another character, or an actor and an audience member, and it's all that sort of unpredictable spark. I think that's it's really, really special and really unique and often weird and always fun. Yeah.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That was Hamish talking to Matt Crook, one of the actors in Windmill's latest production of Grug. It looks adorable. I love how when they took it over to the US, they called Grug the Elmo Down Under.
How good's that? I love that.
He's such a cute little dude. So I was just looking at the production's website. So they are celebrating 10 years of performances of this show in 2020.
I love how that began in the late 70s from what I understand, and it's still going today. Like that story is still running today.
It's such a classic Australian story in so many ways. Yeah. They've performed to more than 50,000 children and families worldwide. Wow, absolutely insane.
Wow.
And I was just checking out some of the footage that they've got on the Adelaide Festival Centre website. It's so cute. It's like a little Grug puppet that they just move around the stage.
Oh, man.
It looks adorable.
Yeah. And I love what Matt was saying about, kids around the world, like they find it's Australian, but they still find it, it can relate to anyone, anywhere.
That's beautiful.
I love that, yeah.
Well, the production is running until 18 October. So if you're intrigued by Hamish's story just now and want to take the kids along or just see it yourself, no shame in that.
Absolutely.
You can grab tickets via windmill.org.au. Also, that music you just heard in the background of that story was some of the music from the production of Grug by DJ Tripp. So that's
cool.
a bit of a treat for everyone.
Absolutely.
Anyway, coming up after the break, we're getting into our main interview of the night with the amazing Dr. Nicola Spurrier.
Oh, can't wait for this one.
So excited. You're listening to Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength with David and Andrew. Tonight, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. So, Andrew, you had the chance to have a really special chat this week.
That's
How
right.
about you tell us all about it?
All right. So early last week, actually, I was given the really cool opportunity to chat with Dr. Nicola Spurrier. Now, for those of you who don't know, you've probably seen her on the TV, but
Yes.
she is the state's chief public health officer, and she has been absolutely instrumental to our COVID response.
Yep.
She's been all over. Her face has been plastered everywhere.
Yes.
And it was such an honour to chat to her about everything, really, she's been doing over the past few months to keep us all safe.
Yeah, it's a very comprehensive chat. It's a real doozy, and we've got it for you right now. You're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
What moves did South Australia's government and health authorities make to put us in such a strong position, and did our geographic position help, do you think?
Well, look, I think the first thing to say is that we were able to do a lot of testing very quickly. And so early on, SA Pathology were able to really ramp up their testing. And even before we were saying to people get a COVID-19 swab, we were testing all of the respiratory swabs for COVID-19. So it made me feel very confident that if we did have it in the state, we were going to know about it. But the other thing, and you asked about our geographical location, I really do think having first up the international borders, obviously that made a huge difference for us in Australia. But we started to get some cases coming from interstate, and I know that having those state borders closed has really been a pain in the neck for many people, but that was also instrumental in helping protect South Australia.
And if you had your time again, do you think you would have done anything differently or perhaps better in response to the pandemic? Do you have any regrets at all?
Look, that's a bit of a difficult one. It's always, we say in medicine, it's always easy with the retrospectoscope because you can think, gee, I should have done that differently. But in actual fact, I think we really did put things into place very quickly here in SA Health. One of the things that is really positive about South Australia is because we're small and we've got a networked health system, we all know each other. And so it's so easy to get on the phone and call somebody and then get things moving. And I think that was a real benefit to us. I was thinking about when you said, do I have any regrets? We can always say it would be better to have a better IT system. I think people who work in IT probably hear that frequently, but we're really getting in a good place now with many of our systems becoming automated. And I think, that it's put a lot of stress and strain on many people. Many of our staff have worked very long hours. People are working 12-hour days, working across weekends, and it is important to try and look after people. And I was just thinking when you asked about having any regrets, I have to say my 12-year-old has not seen very much of me at all, and I haven't seen very much of him either. And so that is perhaps one little personal regret that I have.
So we've seen how quickly a second wave can manifest itself, in Victoria. We've seen it across in New Zealand and Auckland. What's being done to protect South Australia from a similar resurgence of COVID-19?
So one of the things that we noticed in Auckland in particular was that they didn't have any restrictions at all in place once they felt they'd eliminated COVID, and people went back to basically doing what they'd always done. So there was that sort of complacency about, well, this is over now. And I think that was a mistake. So we certainly want to continue to have people mindful of the 1.5 metres physical distancing, the hand washing, and absolutely to get tested. And to help people along with that, we're very likely to have a level of restrictions across our community, particularly in terms of some of those very large events that we've had in the past. So one of my team are working on all of those COVID management plans for some of those very big events. So I think those sorts of things will help us with the resurgence. But of course, having people getting tested is the only way I'm going to know if we have the disease in the state. So that is really one of the most important things I'd be saying to people.
Victoria's case numbers have thankfully been trending sort of steadily downwards in the past few weeks. We've seen the border bubble increase to 70 kilometres. Does this put us closer to opening the border to Victoria fully?
Look, this is one of the things that we are looking at absolutely every day. As people know, when we just made decisions about New South Wales, it's not so much about the numbers, it's what the numbers represent. So every case represents something different. So when we've had cases in South Australia and these are people in a quarantine hotel, we know that it's not going to be able to get any further. So it's those, what Victoria calls the mystery cases. It's when there's a case of COVID, but you cannot find the source. You don't know where they've got it from. And that obviously implies that there are other people in the community with COVID that you don't know about. So I will be looking very, very closely at what those mystery cases mean, not just the number, but where they are coming from and how long they've been out in the community and infectious.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That there was Andrew talking with the one and only Dr. Nicola Spurrier, the state's Chief Health Officer, and one of the reasons we've done so well during this pandemic. Absolutely. I mean, we've got more from her with you later,
That's right. Yeah.
First of all, Andrew, I want to know, what was it like? She's such an amazing celebrity almost.
It was kind of surreal. It was, it was really weird, but it was great to talk to her. She's got just so much to talk about. She's got so much knowledge about our response, about and our response into the future as well. And that was such a first-hand sort of look into, I guess, the state's response to COVID-19, which I think has been pretty amazing. We've done really well. Oh, for sure. Compared to, many other states, many other countries around the world where, I know our case numbers are high and that any deaths are unacceptable in a way, but we have done so well, relatively speaking. Absolutely. It's great. It's been great, yeah. I did find it funny that she said she would like to have better IT system. Yeah. We must have done something right because we're not in the state that the UK is in. Exactly. So what happened? They had an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, exactly. And it just... They ran out of rows of columns. Yeah. Just so ridiculous. I don't know how they can get that so wrong. Anyway, it's good that we don't have that problem. But yeah, she was saying stuff about, how we've done very quick testing and how effective the border closures have been. Yeah. And of course they are very quite unpopular with some people and some people love them. That's fine. But yeah, it's a testament to how well we've done. That the border closures are, they have been a necessity, really, I guess. I mean, it's been hard for so many people. I mean, it's been hard for me. My sister lives interstate in New South Wales and she can only get back. I mean, it's been months since I've seen her, really. And I mean, even now with the sort of outbreaks going on in New South Wales, again, it's sort of up in the air as to what's going on. Yeah, there's still no, I'm sure the transition committee will sort of be looking at that this week. But yeah, mystery cases are starting to pop up again. It's not looking... Well, yeah, not looking good. I think these border closures on and off is something that we'll probably have to deal with until we get a vaccine. Absolutely, so, it's going to take a while, I think. Yeah. Oh well, it's a small price to pay for living in this great state where we can go out and basically do whatever we want at the moment. So I'm not complaining. Anyway, we've got more of Andrew's chat with Nicola later, but after the break, we'll be letting you know what the hell is going on with politics this week. You're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength. We'll be getting back into Andrew's interview with Dr. Nicola Spurrier soon. But for now, let's throw to Hamish to let us know what the hell is going on with politics this week.
What the hell is going on in politics at the moment? Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
The budget made up the bulk of our news feeds this week, but there were a few other headlines that might have got by you. Firstly, though, let's stay on the budget, as I know you're all on the edge of your seats about that. The 2020 budget was finally delivered this week after being consistently delayed due to COVID-19, and the results are a bit of a mixed bag. The big winners include young Australians who have some of their salaries paid for by the government, but the childcare industry has missed out on any additional financial support, and our climate policy was, once again, neglected. Meanwhile, opposition leader Anthony Albanese outlined the key promises made by his party in his official reply to the budget. His response committed to overhaul the current childcare subsidy scheme, which would save Aussie families up to almost $3,000 a year, and pledged to create a centre for disease control to prepare for the threat of any future pandemics. Also in the news, Senator Jackie Lambie has unleashed an incendiary response to the Coalition's changes to university funding, saying poor kids will get a raw deal. The proposed amendments now hang in the balance, with the SA political party Centre Alliance holding the casting vote, who have stated their position is still undecided and will consult with South Australian universities before acting any further. Finally, New South Wales Deputy Premier John Barilaro is set to lose his driver's licence after a string of offences, and it's been revealed that Channel 9 paid for Pauline Hanson's controversial Uluru climb. And that's what the hell has been going on in politics this week.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
Thanks for that, Hamish. Stay tuned for part 2 of Andrew's chat with the one and only Dr. Nicola Spurrier coming up very soon. Right now, though, you're listening to Fresh 92.7.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength on Fresh 92.7 with David and Andrew tonight. Before the break, we heard part 1 of Andrew's chat with Dr. Nicola Spurrier, focusing on how Adelaide did so well during the pandemic period.
But what I really wanted to know was how the sudden thrusting into the spotlight during this pandemic has impacted Dr. Spurrier. She's a bona fide celebrity here in Adelaide now and has a damn cocktail named after her.
Isn't that insane?
I love that. It's how good.
I need to go get one. Yeah, it certainly is a strange time when we are turning public servants into celebrities. But here's part 2 of Andrew's chat with Dr. Nicola Spurrier. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
New Zealand authorities, they're also discussing the prospect of a travel bubble with Australia being put in place fairly shortly. How realistic do you think that is, and what's holding us back from instating that travel bubble right now?
Yeah, so again, it would be very nice to allow more travel, and I have family in New Zealand, and it would be very nice to be able to travel freely between countries. So we're definitely looking at that. At the moment, it's one way, so it's for people coming from New Zealand not quarantining when they come to New South Wales and NT at this stage. And again, we would be using the same information and looking to have the same level of detail about the cases in New Zealand, and as we did with New South Wales and as we've discussed with Victoria, but also understanding their level of restrictions at the moment, because of course if it's highly restricted then you need to interpret those numbers within that framework. So I think this is definitely again something that we should be looking at closely, and I would be very happy to have that bilateral agreement so that we could all move freely between countries.
One aspect of South Australian restrictions our listeners are particularly struggling with is that of dancing in public, like in clubs. I know we've seen the restrictions recently lift for private events, etc. Are we likely to see dance floors opening anytime soon, do you think? And are any other restrictions on nightlife likely to lift soon?
Yeah, so we've certainly as you've said, we've now allowed the dancing with drinking at private functions, and the reason we've been confident to do that is that we can do the contact tracing when it's a smaller group of known people rather than a large venue where you've got lots of people coming in and out. And unfortunately, the data shows all around the world that those are the places where super spreader events can occur, and it is then very difficult once all of those people go home and then interact with their families and their communities to chase all of those people up. So whilst we are in a good place in South Australia at the moment in terms of not having any active cases that are not in a quarantine facility, it is still a concern to us because of the way that those events occur. So we've opened up to New South Wales. I'm very happy to now have the dancing and drinking at the private functions. That's particularly important for events like weddings, but I just want to feel that we've had enough time since we've opened New South Wales and we're getting more people into our state that we can do it in a safe manner.
And this is a very quick question without notice, but we've got the Port Adelaide prelim final coming up. Are there any considerations being given to crowd numbers increasing for that?
So my team went out on Thursday night to have a look at what the match was like, and I haven't had a briefing yet from them. I've had a bit of a focus on helping sort out the cricket for the Sheffield Shield. So we're always looking at any opportunity where we can help out, but mindful that we need to be able to do it safely.
Many chief public health officers, and I think it's safe to say that includes you, with even a cocktail named after you in town, that they've essentially become celebrities during this time. Do you think that's helpful, and has it affected you at all?
Well, the thing is, it's interesting you say, is it helpful? What I think is helpful is that people have actually understood how important population or public health is and the importance of having prevention. And many people had no idea about quarantine or incubation period or any of those sorts of concepts before we had the pandemic. And so I think it has been helpful from that perspective. The other thing is, as you said, I've had a cocktail named after me, and I've also been told I've been moved up to sainthood, which is obviously very, very flattering. But I don't see it as a personal thing for me. I actually see this as a recognition that South Australia has done really well, and I'm in South Australia and I'm here supporting every South Australian. So I really feel like it's people just saying, look, we've done really well as a community.
So, Nicola, to wrap up, do you have any advice for South Australians you'd like to share at all?
Yes, so I've already mentioned the testing, and I will always talk about the testing, and I will tell everybody I meet to keep washing their hands. But I guess the one thing I've been thinking about over the last couple of weeks, now that we've had our COVID marshals in place for a while, and we've had a great uptake for COVID marshals, and I've just had a few people say to me they were somewhere and nobody was listening to the COVID marshal, or someone was being disrespectful. And when I've seen the COVID marshals, they really are doing a great job. So that's one thing I would say to South Australians, is if you're out at a venue and the COVID marshal is doing their job, just follow their instructions, because together we can all win this, and just to be kind and respectful to everybody is very helpful.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That there was Andrew chatting with Dr. Nicola Spurrier, and the end of that was super inspiring. I think that she's so right that we just all need to come together and just make sure that this doesn't get out of control in any way, because we've had a great run so far.
Yeah, just everyone needs to make sure they're, I know we've not had many cases recently, but still make sure you're following all the rules, washing your hands, respecting COVID marshals and respecting each other. Yeah. Because we need to, now more than ever, we need to come together and support each other.
Totally. And there's nothing stopping what happened in Victoria from happening here at all.
Exactly.
Just takes one person. I mean, now we've got our border open to New South Wales. They've got some cases there. It takes one positive case to come into the state, walk around, and we've got a bit of a problem on our hands.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I totally understand why things like the no dancing rule is still in place, and you chatted with her about that, and it is so important, I guess, that while we're in this weird place that we sort of obey the rules, but it is a bit of a shame, because I know a lot of people I talk to, they're like, there's no COVID here, why can't we do what we want? And I'm like, I feel that. It is
exactly.
Hard.
But that's the thing, like you said, one spark and it's up again.
One spark, that's all it takes.
Yeah, exactly.
I also really liked her response to your questions about becoming a celebrity.
I know, she was very humble, wasn't she?
She was.
She's sort of talked more about how glad she is that people have understood the importance of public health now, which is something that perhaps many people didn't beforehand, I don't think.
For sure. Yeah, I didn't.
No, exactly, yeah. We'd never heard the term, self-isolation.
I had no idea who she was before this.
Exactly, yeah. And she's really, because you see her on TV basically every day now.
Yep.
So she's, like she was saying, she's been moved up to sainthood apparently, which is such an amazing line. She loves her sainthood now, I think. But and the cocktail as well. It's just people have really gotten around her as well. It's so good.
I mean, you did such a good job with that chat. I knew you would nail it, Andrew.
Thank you.
That was Andrew chatting with Dr. Nicola Spurrier. You can listen to an extended version of that chat actually on our podcast.
Absolutely, that's coming out soon.
That's coming out very soon. So keep an eye on that for after this show runs, and just head to wherever you get your podcasts, and you can hear the full chat. Unedited, all the juicy bits. I don't know.
Nothing is restricted. Nothing's off limits.
It's R-rated chat. Anyway, next, Wavelength explains everything you need to know about what's happened with the coronavirus this week. But right now, you're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having.
Right now, we're getting into our weekly segment where Wavelength explains what has happened with the coronavirus this week.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Hey guys, it's time to bring you the weekly COVID update. We're all well aware of the effect that COVID has had on the job market. However, some economists fear that the repercussions may leave a generation locked out of ever owning a home or starting a family, after data revealed that young people have lost their jobs at more than double the rate of those aged in their 40s. Since March, 1 in 16 jobs held by people in their 20s vanished completely. Centre for Future Work senior economist Alison Pennington has warned that full-time jobs are being replaced by smaller part-time jobs, which are more likely to be casual and insecure. The federal government has made steps to mitigate the job losses for young people, announcing a $4 billion job maker scheme to pay employers $200 a week to hire people aged between 16 and 35, as well as pay for half the wages of 100,000 new apprentices and trainees. Health experts have warned that there has been a severe and dramatic increase in psychiatric consultations and mental health presentations at emergency departments due to the pandemic. People under 25 have made up more than half of the extra mental health demand at EDs across Adelaide. South Australian Chief Psychiatrist Dr. John Brayley said early intervention is the key to handling the increased pressure. Community mental health prevention and support services have also been stretched to this limit across the state. Health Minister Stephen Wade said that the state government had boosted funding for mental health by almost $20 million since 2018 and spends more than 10% more on mental health services than the national average. Remember, if you're feeling and having any issues with your mental health, please seek help and contact Beyond Blue or Lifeline for some support. To some brighter news, while many of the state's Christmas events have been cancelled due to coronavirus, one council has decided to go ahead with their annual festival. The Murray Bridge Riverfront Christmas is set to go ahead in November to help lift the spirits in the Murrayland. The pageant usually attracts over 7,000 people to the town centre, but this year it will be travelling along the Sturt Reserve in order to allow people to socially distance. Other similar events that have faced the axe have been this year's Carols by Candlelight, the West End Riverbank Lights and the official Lights of Loberthal. And that's all for your weekly COVID-19 update.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That there was Arj letting you know everything you need to know about what's been happening with the coronavirus this week. A very coronavirus heavy show today.
I know, very.
You're listening to Fresh 92.7.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength with David and Andrew tonight, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having.
Right now, we've got our happy little heaps good news segment to finish the show up with, this time from our very own Ant.
Heaps good news on Wavelength.
We haven't spoken to you for a few weeks now, which means we've been able to bundle together a whole bunch of positive stories which really made us smile. We don't have hours of time, but in the next couple of minutes we will present just a few. To begin with, probably not the friendliest information for an arachnophobe, but great for a conservationist. The peacock spider from Western Australia, which was thought to be extinct after the January bushfires, has made an unexpected appearance. The critically endangered jumping spider, which is only found in the Stirling Range National Park, was spotted at Bluff Knoll and are now in breeding season, which means the species may have survived after all. Staying on wildlife, and after 100 years of bilbies being extinct in New South Wales, 10 individuals have been released from Dubbo Zoo to the Sturt National Park in the northwestern corner of the state. The area of their reintroduction is around about 2,000 hectares and is fenced off to protect them from wild cats, foxes and rabbits. There is only about 9,000 bilbies currently in Australia, but it is aimed that releasing them into small enclosures could increase the population by 17%. Moving locally now, and after many years of waiting around, the concept designs for Adelaide Cityscape Park have been released. It will be in a V shape and involve separate sections including a beginners, a more advanced and a series of smaller ramps for children to learn on. Each surface was signed off by an engineer as being as smooth as possible, so injuries do not occur from falling onto uneven surfaces. Construction is expected to start at the end of the year and be completed in the middle of 2021. Moving overseas now, and Parent University, an organisation in the United States, is bringing together community members and representatives from the local government of Savannah, including the Mayor and the Chief of Police, to explore issues of equality and justice. The aim of this is to bring about greater societal unity in a period of heightened consciousness in the US around racial prejudice. Here, the Chief of Police acknowledged that the concerns of community members were shared by officials. This showed mutual understanding and allowed everyone to be able to make plans moving forward while having a common goal. Follow-up conversations reiterated this shared purpose and has allowed for a broad discussion about improving systems of public safety. The Mayor subsequently pointed out that there are now new opportunities in decision-making, which will allow people to be involved which have never had the opportunity in the past. So there you have it, just a snippet of the stories which made us smile here at Wavelength, and we wish you all a fantastic week ahead.
Wavelength, Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you for that, and a very wildlife heavy heaps good news this week. Loved that story about the bilbies.
That was
Go to
great.
bilbies.
And I think in a related story, Chris Hemsworth was actually, he and his wife were helping out release about 10 or 11 Tassie devils into the wild.
That's amazing.
And they've apparently been extinct on the Australian mainland for about 3,000 years.
What?
Which is wild. Like I never even knew that.
Seriously,
3,000 years apparently.
That's insane.
But it's so good that they're like, because into a wildlife park as well,
Cool.
just trying to rejuvenate the species and stuff, which is great.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, well done, Chris.
Really bringing it in for us this week. Anyway, that brings us to the end of tonight's show. Thank you for listening and thank you for joining me, Andrew.
It's all right. Yeah, make sure you're subscribed to the Wavelength podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts as well. You can listen back to our old episodes right now and you'll be the first to know when tonight's episode goes up.
That is right. You're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.